Hello, and welcome to the Dr. Toomer Talk Show. I'm Dr. Catherine Toomer, your host, and I am a family medicine and community health physician and founder of Total Weight Care Institute. If you find this video helpful, please share it with people, your loved ones, family, friends, and like the video on YouTube and subscribe. And also hit that little bell so that way you can you'll know anytime that I post a video. There are over 400 videos and shorts on my channel. So all things health, wellness, and weight care related, including metabolic management. So if you're interested and you feel you need it, make sure you go there. So tonight I'm going to be talking about hypertension. Once I'm done, we can have a Q&A at the end. Hello, Marcy from Barbados. Thank you for joining. So if you're joining, let me know where you're joining from. Tell me your name. And if you're listening later, put in hashtag replay. Also know that if you leave comments at the end of, after my videos on YouTube, I do respond. And so, and also when it comes to questions, I'm curating a community for better support, for better group support for several times in the week. So these will be live, hour-long or more, community discussion support. And so I'll be getting that information out to you. If you want to know this and want to know what's going on, you can email me at help@drtoomer.com so that I have your email so you'll get all the updates. All right. So howdy from Nebraska. Hello, Jennifer. Nice to see you. So hypertension. What is hypertension? Now, some people call it high blood pressure. Same thing. Hypertension. And it's something that gets thrown around. Oh, my blood pressure is high, or I'm borderline, or my doctor says. So hi, Physician Impossible. Love that name. All right. So hypertension. So what hypertension is actually, how we describe it, or how you may know it, is a number called systolic over diastolic. And essentially what that means is the pressure that your vessels withstand when the heart beats, and the pressure that your vessels withstand when your heart relaxes. And so this is what happens every single time your heart beats. It pushes out blood, it creates a pressure, and then when it relaxes, it creates another pressure. And that is called your systolic over diastolic. And what that number is given is something over something. So, we like to see blood pressures around 135 over 85. If it is high, it is over 140 over 90. That is considered hypertension. And it's not considered hypertension unless you've had readings 3 times that are elevated. Just a one-time elevated reading is not considered hypertension. Your blood pressure may be high, but that's not necessarily hypertension, because if it's not chronically high, then you're fine. So now, but we'll talk a little bit more about that. So it is systolic over diastolic. Want to be less than 140 over 90. So why is this so important? So imagine pressure washing. When high pressure hits something, it weakens it, it strips it. And so imagine if you have a pressure washer on concrete. As hard as concrete is, pressure washing can strip the top of concrete. So imagine if something is high pressure hitting the inside of soft blood vessels, what it does. It damages them. It damages the inside. It makes the inside of your blood vessels weak or rough. If it makes it rough, then what happens is cholesterol sticks to it, and therefore you're more likely to have heart attacks. If it makes it weak, then when blood pressure goes up, they're more likely to burst. Now, if that happens in the large vessel, like your aorta, then it is called an aortic dissection, and that can be fatal. If it is in your brain, it is called a hemorrhagic stroke. and that can also be fatal. If it's in your intestines, it can be a blockage or it can be a burst. And if it happens, then parts of your intestine can die and you end up with severe infections, and sepsis also can be fatal. So high blood pressure is really important to control. If it's in small blood vessels, it can affect your eye, can lead to blindness. It can lead to amputations of toes and fingers. So it's really important to keep blood pressure under control. And because what happens is the blood supply to the rest of your body, to all of your body, is dependent on the integrity of your blood vessels. And so hypertension puts those at risk. So that's why. But so how do you do anything about it? Well, one of the ways that you help control your blood pressure is by the S word again, stress, controlling your stress. Stress is creates the production of cortisol, norepinephrine, and epinephrine. And norepinephrine and epinephrine drives your blood pressure up. And so by controlling your stress, you can bring it down. The other is by lifestyle. Regular exercise, regular low impact cardiovascular exercise helps your heart act the way it's supposed to, beats the way it's supposed to, and your body gets used to blood being pumped to various parts of your body, and therefore it maintains the integrity of your blood vessels. And so regular exercise. Now, certain types of salts, certain types of can make blood pressure worse. It won't necessarily create high blood pressure, but it definitely can make it worse. And so just watching salt intake can do that, particularly certain types of salt. And so that is why it's so important then to keep your blood pressure under control. First of all, you need to know what your blood pressure is. So when someone says, oh, your blood pressure is good, it's not you don't want it to know if it's good or bad. You want to know the actual number, and you want to write that number down, and you want to keep track of that number. Now, there's something called white coat hypertension, which means there are people whose blood pressure only goes up when they're at the doctor's office. What I do in those situations is I have someone have a blood pressure cuff at home and to monitor their blood pressure every morning around the same time and write it down. And then take that blood pressure cuff with you to your doctor's appointment so that you can have your blood pressure checked at your doctor's appointment using their blood pressure cuff and your blood pressure cuff. If it turns out that your blood pressure cuff shows the exact same reading as your doctor's and it's high, then they can trust the readings you have at home. So that is what you do if you're someone whose blood pressure only goes up when you go to the doctor's office, which is actually pretty common. Then what you do is you check it at home and then you take that blood pressure cuff with you. Now, there's certain things that can actually make your blood pressure go up other than, lifestyle issues, but also like kidney disease. So you always want to know at least once a year, have your kidney levels checked so that you know if there's something coming down the pike. If your kidney function starts to drop, your blood pressure will start to go up. And so it's really important then to maintain your kidney health in order to maintain your cardiovascular health, because our systems are all interconnected. And I see that there's a few questions in here, so I'm going to jump over and answer the questions, and then I'm just going to run through the what, why, how, and again. So when I'm going to actually click on this so y'all can see it. So when I'm at home and I take my pressure, it's mostly 130/80, a little over under. But when I go to the doctor, it's always elevated 145, 140 to 145/90. And that's very puzzling. It's actually very common. And that's what I was just talking about. The white coat hypertension is that what it's called. And essentially it's just your blood pressure when you're at the doctor's office. And so, like I said before, what you do is you check your blood pressure at home and you write it down. You check it every single day and you write it down. Then when you take those readings with you and your blood pressure cuff to your doctor's appointment so that they can compare to make sure that your cuff is accurate. And so that way they check theirs using their cuff, then they check using your cuff, and they see if the numbers are the same. So that way they can trust the numbers that you have at home. And so because otherwise what happens is you end up being unnecessarily treated. And so when you're at the doctor's office and they check your blood pressure, it's high. If your blood pressure is normal and you're on a blood pressure medicine, then it drops too low. And that can cause other problems. And so it's very, very important that if you see that pattern, you make sure that you take your cuff with you to your doctor's appointment so that they know that it is white coat hypertension. Most doctors know this is a thing, so they will trust you when they see your numbers. Jennifer says, type 2 diabetic, lost 90 pounds, high cholesterol, 7.5 Manjaro and Zetia. Doctor started me on Nexletol. What is Nexletol? Is it good? I stopped rosuvastatin as I didn't like it. Okay. Now, I'm not as familiar with Nexletol. With the OL at the end, and depending on what country you're in, usually with something that ends in an OL often is a beta blocker, but I would have to look that up, honestly, because I don't know the name of that medication. Rosuvastatin is a statin. Now that is an anti-cholesterol medication. And what and so often the side effects of that are muscle fatigue and muscle aches and the like. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to look up Nexletol right now because brand names, I'm not as familiar with brand names of medications as I am with generic names, especially now that I don't treat people as much as I used to. So I'm just going to look it up. Nexletol. Let's see. What is it? Non-statin medication approved for lowering LDL. Okay. Well, there you go. So it's a so what it does is it lowers your what's considered your bad cholesterol, which is your low density lipoprotein, which is essentially the ones that stick to blood vessels. So when I was talking about hypertension and how it strips the inside of vessels and the cholesterol sticks, it's that LDL that sticks, not the HDL. And so depending on what your numbers are, that could be a very good medication. I'm not familiar with it at all, so I cannot tell you if it's good or bad. So, let me see. Denise says, hello, Dr. Toomer, and everyone watching from Pennsylvania. Hello. So again, just to run through everything again, I know that I've been going through these rather quickly because mainly because I want to keep these short. Mainly because the algorithms and the various videos make it difficult to have long videos, and also because nobody wants to sit through an hour of me talking. But anyway, so once again, what is hypertension? Hypertension is when your blood pressure is over 140/90. And it is basically, this is your blood vessel, and this is when the pressure pushes against the sides of the blood vessel. That is hypertension. Why is it so important to know if you have hypertension or not? Is because hypertension weakens blood vessels, and when blood vessels get weak, damage happens throughout the body. In the brain, it can be a stroke. In the heart, it can be a heart attack. In the eyes, it leads to blindness. Kidneys lead to kidney failure. There are other things that can cause hypertension, like stress, kidney issues, and a poor diet, poor lifestyle. If you don't exercise and you don't strengthen your heart in other ways, then you have cardiovascular issues. So if you ignore these things, if you just like, oh, I'm it doesn't matter. I'm going to, my blood pressure is really, really high and I'm going to change this. I'm going to change that. And I'm not going to take medication. Usually you may run out of time. There's always a point in any chronic condition where you reach a point where lifestyle may take too long and may take time that you no longer have. And therefore, you at least need to start medication to get into a safer range while you work on other things to then come off the medication later if you can. But ignoring high blood pressure leads to problems. Assuming that you can do something about your blood pressure in enough time before it does a lot of damage is not always realistic. And so it's really important then to discuss these things with your doctor and to follow their guidance. The other with, and then we talked a little bit about, again, hypertension, white coat hypertension. So if you have that, like Marcy said, if you have it, check your blood pressure at home, write it down, take your blood pressure cuff with you to your doctor's office, and so that they can compare their cuff with yours, their readings with yours. And so that is and the reason we call it the silent killer, there's this misperception that you can feel hypertension. People are like, oh, I can tell because I have a headache. If your hypertension gives you a headache, that's your body's warning that you're about to have a stroke. Usually, if you have the worst headache you've ever had in your life, that is often an indication of what's called a CVA, or vascular accident. Well, basically cerebral vascular accident. So basically what it means is that you're having a stroke. And so if you can feel hypertension, it is it's just way too high. But usually what happens is pain causes stress, which causes blood pressure to go up and not the other way around. It is called the silent killer because many people walking around with high blood pressure just simply do not know. They do not feel it until it's too late. So if you have any other questions, you can write them now. And Jennifer, I am going to look more into Neclitol, so that way the next time you sign on, I'll be able to tell you a little bit more about it. I'm just not as familiar with it as I am with some of the other older medications, and mainly because I don't do primary care much anymore. And so I don't prescribe those type of things. I really mainly stick with, I do a lot of weight management with GLP-1s right now. Denise said, Dr. Toomer, what about lower blood pressure? At my last appointment, mine was 104/60. Is that normal? It depends on whether you're symptomatic or not. So low blood pressure in and of itself is not a problem unless one of two things happen. It makes you dizzy. You notice that when you stand up, you get very dizzy, or you're very, very tired. There are other heart conditions that can cause low blood pressure. So you always want to make sure those things are not there. And usually those have to do with rhythm issues, or congestive heart failure can cause it as well. The other thing that you want to make sure that low blood pressure isn't from is dehydration. If you have low blood volume from not drinking enough fluid, you can have low blood pressure. The other thing that is a problem when you have low blood pressure is it can affect your kidney perfusion, meaning that blood getting to your kidneys is too low because the pressure is too low. And when the pressure is too low and not enough blood gets to your kidneys can start to fail. And so having low blood pressure can become a problem. So it's something that needs to be monitored. But if you're having symptoms of low blood pressure, dizziness when you stand up, when you move suddenly, weakness, tiredness, then yeah, it can be a problem and you need to talk to your doctor about it. Okay. Hi, Patsy. Good evening from Lawrenceville. Thank you for joining. And Michelle from New Jersey. All right. Nee said you have vertigo, so at times I'm a little dizzy. Now, is the vertigo from your blood pressure, or is the that's the thing? Is your vertigo related to your blood pressure? because if it is related to your blood pressure, then having a low blood pressure is a problem. There are some medications that can do that, can make your blood pressure too low. And so it's always good to go through your medical history, go through your medications, go through your fluid intake, and also make sure that your kidneys are working properly. But yeah, dizziness with low blood pressure is not a good combination. Any other questions before we go? I'm just looking at the... Yes, I looked it up. I realized what it is. Okay, so it's adenosine triphosphate lipase inhibitor. Okay, so yeah, that is... I mean, I couldn't tell you if it's good or bad based on your question. It makes sense that it would help with cholesterol, given the cycle and how cholesterol is made in the body and the liver. 80% of our cholesterol is made in our body, and only 20% comes from our diet. So based on what you've said, it's very, it makes sense that it works, but the question was whether it's good, or I don't know if it's good or not. I've not used it, so I can't say. But thank you, Physician Impossible. Physician Man, they got your back. They will. Thank you for that. But I mean, I know what it means, but trying to, and the only reason why I'm not going into it more is because trying to explain that to someone who doesn't understand the how cholesterol is made in the body, it just sounds like Greek. So I'll just leave it at that. It does work. I can see why it would work, and but I can't tell you if it's good or not. So, but I'll ask. We can ask around and find out. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you for joining me. Like I said, if you have any other questions, you can write to me at help@drtoomer.com. You can leave questions after the videos. Make sure you like my videos. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you want to be invited to join the support and success group, a community that's going to be around health, wellness, and metabolic management and weight management, around all things menopause and other things, and just being supportive for all things that are health and wellness, you can write to me at help@drtoomer.com, and I'll make sure that you get all the information that is necessary in order to join. All right. Well, thank you for coming tonight, and I will see you next Tuesday at the Dr. Toomer Talk Show. Good night.